Hi everyone, it's Miss Gillikin again. I'm so happy to be back with you so that we can continue our lessons using the fiction story, The Empty Pot, written and illustrated by Demi. Before we begin today's lesson, I think it's important for us to stop and think about what we did the last time we were together. So let's review some of our anchor charts. The first time we read The Empty Pot, our job as readers was to focus on being able to describe our characters. We remember that when we describe characters, we ask ourselves, what does the character say and what does the character do? That helps us to think about the characters and how they might be feeling. Their words and their actions can let us know how they feel. And in order to describe a character, we talked about having to use the author's words, what the text says, and the illustrations, what we see in the pictures, and we combine that with what we know, and that's how we come up with our description of characters. In The Empty Pot, the main character is Ping, so that's who we're going to focus on again today. When we first read The Empty Pot, we focused on how Ping felt. We looked at what the text said, what we know about that, and how that helped us to describe him. So at some times during the story, he felt very happy. Other times he was worried, confused, impatient, even disappointed and ashamed. So his feelings changed throughout the story, from the beginning to the middle to the end. And if you remember like I do, by the end of the story, Ping felt very proud and excited. So today we're going to continue describing our character Ping. But we're not going to focus on feelings today. We're going to focus on character traits. Now, if you remember, in our first lesson, I had you show some feelings for me on your face and through how your body looked. So I have this little drawing here today. Because today our focus in describing characters is going to be on character traits. And even though we're still going to ask ourselves, what does the character say? What does the character do? When we think about traits, traits are not shown on our face. Traits are on the inside. Traits describe the type of person that a character is. And when we describe a character by their traits, we focus on their words and their actions. So today we're going to dig back into The Empty Pot. We're going to look at certain parts of the story and we're going to focus on Ping. And we're going to see what are his actions and what are his words and what trait can we use to describe him based on those. So we're still thinking about the text evidence, the author's words, and combining that with what we know to conclude a trait that describes our character. So I have a few places marked in the text where I want us to go back and reread. The first place I'm going to take you to is right here. And I see in the illustration that this is where the emperor is handing out the seeds. So this is still very much at the beginning of the story. When I reread the author's words, let's focus on what actions or words can help us to describe a trait for Ping based on those actions and words. When Ping received his seed from the emperor, he was the happiest child of all. He was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. Now, Ping isn't saying anything on this page, so there's nothing to write down for words. But for his actions, the text said he was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. So under actions, I'm going to put Ping was sure. And notice I'm not writing everything the text said, but I'm thinking about how Ping is acting. When we are sure of something, and in this case, he's sure he can grow the most beautiful flower in this contest that's happening across the kingdom. When someone like Ping is sure of something, a trait that we can use to describe them is confident. When we are sure, it means we're certain. So we are very confident. So I'm going to list the word confident. That is a character trait that describes Ping based upon his actions. Can you think of a time that you have been confident? You might be confident before you go in to play a game, whether that be a board game or a sport. You're confident that you're going to play well. And maybe you're confident that you're going to win because you've practiced and you've prepared. Let's look at another example. In this part of the story, I'm going to look at my illustrations because here I see Ping watering the empty pot. And here is where I see him watching that pot to see what's going to happen. When I reread the text, it says, he watered it every day. He couldn't wait to see it sprout, grow, and blossom into a beautiful flower. Day after day passed, but nothing grew in his pot. Ping was very worried. He put new soil into a bigger pot. Then he transferred the seed into the rich black soil. So again, on these pages, Ping isn't saying much. Sometimes in a story, you're not going to have character words all the time to help you describe the character's traits. But there are several actions that Ping takes. So here's where he was confident in getting the seed. He takes it home and plants it. And then let's look at what his actions were. Ping waters the plant every day. So he's very sure he can grow the plant. He waters it every day. Not once in a while, but every day. Also, when nothing happens and nothing grows, he takes more action. He transfers it to a bigger pot and he puts in rich black soil. So what actions did he take? He gets the bigger pot. Maybe the plant needs more room. And he makes sure that there is rich black soil. So when the seed is not sprouting, day after day, Ping takes some actions. He waters it, and when it's not growing, he gets that bigger pot, and he makes sure that it has room and that it has rich black soil. So when I think about what traits describe Ping based on those actions, I think about what I know. Because the text said that even though he watered it every day, nothing was happening. So sometimes when we are trying to do something and it's not working, we may feel frustrated. And I think we said Ping was feeling confused. He didn't know why it wasn't growing because he'd always been very good at growing seeds into beautiful plants. But when things aren't working out, despite our best efforts, we sometimes get frustrated and we give up. We quit. We say, that's it. I can't do this anymore. It's not working. I'm done. But that's not what Ping does. His actions lead us to describe him in another way. He's not a quitter. He doesn't give up. I'm going to say that a trait he demonstrates is he is determined. Because determined means you never give up. He tries several things to make that seed grow. Because he waters it every day and tries these different things, I also think we can describe him as hardworking. So I'm going to list hardworking as a trait for Ping as well. So again, the difference is, today we're looking at traits. Traits are words that describe how we are as people on the inside, what we're like. So when we read fiction text and we describe our characters, we want to ask ourselves, what do they say and do that helps me to understand what they're like? I can't see from someone's face that they're confident. I can't see from someone's face that they're determined or hardworking. These are traits. How I see those traits are in the actions that they take, the things that they do. Sometimes it'll be the words that they say. And there are some words that Ping says later in our story that help us to describe him using a trait. But right now we didn't have any words, but we certainly could look at his actions. So far our character is confident, determined, and hardworking. Time goes on, and he still sticks to the pot. He checks it all the time. He's still not giving up. And then we get toward the end of the story when it's time to take the pot to the emperor. And if you remember, all the other children have beautiful flowers and trees and plants to show. Ping's the only one that has an empty pot. So let's reread these 2 pages and think some more about trait words that describe Ping. Ping's father overheard this. So what he overheard was when the boy, the clever friend, ran by and was saying, "You're not really going to take an empty pot to the emperor, are you?" And Ping says, "The seed just won't grow." So when his father overheard this, he said to him, "You did your best. And your best is good enough to present to the emperor." Holding the empty pot in his hands, Ping went straight away to the palace. So I thought that the text here on this page really helped me to think about a trait that describes Ping. Because I know when I try to do something and I'm not successful at it, it doesn't work out, it's very hard to admit that and to say that what I tried to do didn't work and I wasn't successful. And it can make you feel embarrassed. And I remember Ping was afraid that the children would laugh at him. So when he went straight away, that means directly. He picked up that pot and he walked straight away, directly to the palace to present before the emperor an empty pot. The character trait word that I think of here that best describes Ping is courageous or brave. So if I said to you I would describe Ping as courageous or brave, so let's put brave and let's put courageous. And those are actually synonyms. Brave and courageous have the same meaning. So if I wanted to describe Ping as brave and courageous, and I had to support that with the text evidence, his actions would be that he took the empty pot to the emperor. I'm going to say to the palace. He took the empty pot to the palace. And I think we all know how difficult that would be because everyone else was taking a beautiful flower. So based on those actions, I can describe Ping as brave and courageous. So far we have quite a list. Our character Ping is confident, determined, hardworking, brave, and courageous. And at the very end of the story, there's another character trait that really describes Ping. So I'm going to reread the last couple pages of the story. This is when the emperor finally came to Ping. He had been looking at all of the other children with their beautiful flowers and plants and trees. So let's reread here. And remember, when we're asked to do some analysis of characters, when we're asked to describe them, good readers have to reread. So you notice how I keep going back into the text, and that's a good habit to get into. Always reread, go back to your evidence, and think again about what you're reading and what you know and how you can combine those things to describe your character. So let's reread. Finally, he came to Ping. Ping hung his head in shame, expecting to be punished. The emperor asked him, "Why did you bring an empty pot?" So now Ping has been asked a question. So at the end of our story, we are going to have some words that Ping says. So we can ask ourselves, what does the character do? But now, what does he say? And how do his words help us describe him using a character trait? So here's what Ping says. Ping started to cry and replied, "I planted the seed you gave me, and I watered it every day, but it didn't sprout. I put it in a better pot with better soil, but still it didn't sprout. I tended it all year long, but nothing grew. So today I had to bring an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do." When the emperor heard these words, a smile slowly spread over his face, and he put his arm around Ping. Then he exclaimed to one and all, "I have found him. I have found the one person worthy of being emperor." Now I'm going to stop there because we know what happens. At the end, Ping gets the entire kingdom and becomes the new emperor. And even the old emperor says Ping has great courage. And remember, we said he was brave and courageous. But I'm going to stop here, and I'm not going to model for you another character trait based on the words that Ping says, because that's what you're going to do as your reading response today. I want you to focus on these last 3 pages in the book. I want you to carefully reread them and really pay attention to the words that Ping says. Some of the words will serve the purpose of going back and reinforcing what we said. They'll show you that he was confident and determined and hardworking. But there are other trait words, one in particular that I'm really thinking of, that you could use to describe Ping based on those words. So that's what your reading response is going to be for today. You're going to look at the last 3 pages in the book, and of course you can reread the whole book. But for your reading response, you're really going to focus on what is it that Ping says when the emperor asks him that question, "Why did you bring an empty pot?" And I want you to come up with another trait word that describes Ping based on what he says, or maybe more than one trait word. So let's do a quick wrap up and review of what we've been working on. When we read fiction text, we focus on the elements of fiction, our characters, our setting, our conflict, our resolution, and even the theme, what we learn from the story. But in our first 2 lessons with the empty pot, we've really been digging deep into our characters. Our job has been to describe them. How do they feel? And what traits do they demonstrate? In both examples, we use what the text said, we combine it with what we know, and then we draw a conclusion where we can describe that character. Sometimes the author tells us exactly how the character feels, or uses a word to describe the character's traits. But oftentimes we have to take the evidence plus what we know and draw that conclusion. So, again, tonight for your reading response, or today, whenever you get to it, you're going to focus on the words that Ping says at the end of the story, and you're going to identify an additional character trait, one or more, that you think describes our character Ping. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Remember, we love you, we miss you, and maybe I'll see you again for another lesson. Bye.